Greetings, hello, and welcome to Equal First, the podcast about balancing self and service in life and love through career, connections, and courage. I'm Rob Farker, your humble host, who hopes that by seeking out the connections and wisdom that I need in order to put folks equal first with myself, I can help you, my listeners, figure out how to step into life more fully. Now, I'm really looking forward to this chat with Jack Glennon because our pre-interview chat was heaps of fun. Not only did it turn out that we are both expat Brits who lived in Cairns around the same time, but that the phrase mad bugger could easily apply to his younger years, and the guy's only in his 30s. Jack has worked for an alcohol sales and marketing firm. He and a friend rode across India in a bloody tuk-tuk to raise money for charity. He's even climbed Kilimanjaro. But Jack's also had to... Yes, Kilimanjaro. Yes, the mountain that rises like Olympus over the Serengeti, I swear, people my age. Getting back to the point, Jack's also had to face some stuff that a lot of us haven't had to face yet, and the biggest of the bunch is his own mortality. Thanks to a defect in his heart present from birth, Jack found himself in hospital in 2020, right when COVID hit, so his wife couldn't be with him, having to call his mum in the UK and tell her goodbye as the doctors were about to stop his heart and couldn't give him odds on whether they would get it going again. An event like that does make one question where one is at in life, and Jack is turning his experiences into fuel for his own business, Glennon Peak Coaching, dedicated to empowering new and experienced professionals to reach their highest potential. And on one hand, I'm certainly an experienced professional. I've been working for, most of my adult life. But it also feels like I'm a bit of a new professional as I try and find out what else there is in life for me out there. So I am especially keen to talk with Jack about his experiences. Jack, thank you very much for your time and welcome onto the show.
Thank you ever so much, Rob. That was one hell of an introduction and extremely kind. And yeah, it does sound like a bit of a journey, which it has been. But one thing that I would sort of make clear to anyone for starters, which sounds weird, I wouldn't change a thing. I generally wouldn't. I had someone recently ask me, going, if you could speak to yourself at 30 or 28, what would you tell them? I'd say keep going, because everything that's gone through and that we'll talk about today has made me who I am today and got me to this point, mistakes and all.
It is a tough one, isn't it? I mean, it is a question that gets asked a lot, I find, in motivational circles or even in life. It's like, if you could go back in time to your younger self, what would you tell them? And there are times when I go, yeah, I've got a bunch of things that I would say that they do differently. And then on the other hand, part of me is like, I'm sick of judging my younger self. I'm here, I'm now. So maybe, like you said, if I did wind up in the past and happen to bump into my younger self, perhaps, hopefully I just do the same thing, or just just get out of their way and make it just a random encounter.
I might give myself a few lottery numbers like Back to the Future. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not silly in that way. But no, I'm a huge believer that adversity is needed. We need to have tough times in our life because that's what helps us build who we are. I was watching Gordon Ramsay recently have a brilliant interview, and he talked about how we're dealt bad cards, and the earlier in life that we're dealt these challenging cards, the better and more comfortable we're going to be dealing with them in life, because it's going to happen to everyone. Everyone's going to have challenging times. And he came with a great quote, which I'll try not to butcher, which is, "Get ready for the storm, be comfortable dancing in the rain," which I just love, because it's about being comfortable being uncomfortable. And through my journey, there was definitely moments where I had to be.
Well, it seems like we're getting a pretty good idea of who Jack Glennon is, but as I mentioned before the chat, I am trialing a slightly different, a tweaked question format. And it just struck me, what an irony that is. You are my 5th guest on this show, and this new format is inspired by an old science fiction show from the mid-90s called Babylon 5. And one of the wonderful things about that show is that it was written in a way around 3 questions, which would help you, if asked, live a better life, but they had to be asked in the right order. And the first one of those is, who are you? So tell us about the person that you enjoy seeing in the mirror at the moment. How would you describe Jack Glennon as he is right now?
It's always a horrible question, isn't it? I would describe myself as someone who is determined to live the best life I can possibly live, for me, but also for everyone around me. And through my journey, I've definitely found my drive and my purpose, which is to develop and support and help others and win vicariously through them. I'm someone who gains so much energy and positivity from being able to have a positive influence on people around me, whether that's personal or professionally. So I'm very aware that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So it's a bit of a cliche to live every day as much as you last, because there's a balance in that. You can't be negligent and just go, right, I'm going to spend all my money and just see ya. But definitely have that understanding, that appreciation of what you got.
How would you compare yourself to the person that you were when you found yourself in the darkest point in your life, the hole, as we like to call it?
Very different now, hugely different. I mean, it's been life-changing. There's been 2 moments of life. The health troubles, which we'll speak about, I'm sure, was one big element, and then leaving the business that I was working for so long, which had virtually become my identity, which isn't healthy. They were 2 pivotal moments for me finding me again and facing some realities and again dealing with that adversity that shapes and created who I am today.
Given that I already made one horrible music gag in the intro, it's tempting to revisit it. I mean, Kilimanjaro was before
Yes.
your strokes and your incident with the heart. Well, I mean, out of curiosity at the time, what made you bless the rains down in Africa?
Great question. So I've always been someone that likes a bit of adventure, and against that comes to living life to the full and whatnot. So before moving over here to Australia, living in the UK, I did something a bit crazy every year. I didn't do the traditional gap year, go around the world, travel, that sort of thing. I went straight into work. So to fill that void, I did something crazy every year. One year I went running with the bulls in Pamplona. I went skydiving. I swam with killer whales in Norway. It was a box ticked for me. It was almost an itch to scratch. So when I left and moved over here, it was very much cool. It's scratched, and I ended up being a scuba diving instructor for quite a while, which, let's take things to the extreme, why not? But I remember watching a charity special back in the UK, and there was a load of celebrities that climbed Mount Kilimanjaro for charity. There was lots of people that were really fit and healthy. There was one guy that was so unhealthy, and actually he managed to battle the altitude sickness better than anybody else, but you could clearly see the challenges that they went through. And for some reason, it's something that always stuck with me, that I really desperately wanted to do. And I never particularly saw it happening, but I was away. I was about to go to a national conference with the company I was working at the time. I was in Byron Bay, and I went out and caught up with a few friends the night before. And this idea kind of come back in my mind of, you could do it. I smoked at the time, so it was like, you could quit smoking and quit drinking and get healthy, and, you could do it. And ironically, I went out and got really, really drunk with a friend, and the next morning, with a desperately bad hangover, went, sod it, book it. And I booked it, literally with a hangover going, the moment I press enter, you're committed and you're going to do this. And that was May, and I booked it for September. So I had from May till September to quit everything, get fit, and do it. And my word, when I set my mind to something, I can be incredibly stubborn. So I trained every day and went hiking every day, every morning, whether I was traveling. So if I was in Brisbane or Sydney, I'd just hike for an hour or two in the morning before work, or on the weekends I'd go for a 3-hour hike. But it was the most challenging mentally and physically thing I'll ever do, but my word, the most fulfilling at the same time. I'd recommend anybody to do it. You don't need to be a triathlete to do it. I certainly wasn't. But it brought people together in such a way, and such a camaraderie that will forever stay with me.
And I imagine you, fingers crossed, you still keep connections with those people who did it with you, because, you know, no one else in your life shares that powerful an experience.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we might send each other happy birthdays, but there's this anniversary that we all message each other, or a lot of us do at least, because there was 11 of us, sorry. There was 11 of us, and 7 of us together made it to the top. So not everyone made it to the top either. So that 7 of us really stuck close together. And yeah, it was just an incredible experience. It's just, yeah, it's slightly hollow for me, because that feeling of getting to the top, that level of euphoria, I don't think I'll ever feel again. But, you know, I'm lucky enough to have experienced it to start with.
Yeah. And one of the irony that I appreciate is that this is something that you did before you had your big moment. You know, it was pre the moment that you kind of went, oh crap, I need to change what I'm doing. We did mention your trip across India in the tuk-tuk, but you were telling me in the pre-chat how just before that and then during it, you experienced strokes.
Yeah, so up until this point, you know, lived a healthy life. So I'm in my late 30s. This is 2019, so obviously Kilimanjaro, scuba diving previously for a job, spending lots of time underwater. And in 2019, March 2019, I believe, I was in the Gold Coast for a sales conference. And at the end of the day, you know, going out with colleagues, a couple of beers, dinner, you know, good fun, good vibes. And I walk into this restaurant, and everyone's taking to a seat to my right on this big long table. You know, energy's high, people are in good spirits. And I walk in, and the best way I can describe it is my foot feels like it's magnetized to the floor, which is a silly thing to say, but I'm walking and I just can't move it. It's just stuck. Naturally, I don't alarm anyone, because no one likes to make a scene, especially people from England.
Doesn't grumble.
Yeah, exactly. I managed to drag myself effectively to the end seat next to the window, and I remember seeing people order, you know, a round of shots and a couple of drinks. I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't know why, but I'm not going to do that, which is a good call in hindsight. And a friend of mine was going outside for a cigarette, and I just grabbed his attention and said, can I join you? He said, yeah, no worries, no dramas. Like, can you help me? And he was really confused, understandably. And I was like, just don't say anything to the guys, just let's get out. And I sat on the bench outside, and this feeling of numbness and deadness, effectively, from my leg was slowly going up my body, to a point where I was doing that on the bench. I was feeling fine, talking to you as I am now, and it went away, and then it came back a lot worse. And effectively, what happened was, I ended up going to hospital. And if anyone who's listening and yourself has been to A&E, you know, I hope they haven't naturally, what traditionally happens is you check in, they go, okay, thank you, sir, sit down over there, we'll see you in 3 hours. What happened with myself is I got there, leant against the wall, and my colleague, who to this day I call family because he stayed with me until 2-3 o'clock in the morning that night, and he will forever be very special. But what happened was, I told them what was going on, and immediately the door next to them opened up and they went, come in.
Yikes.
I was put in a wheelchair, rushed in, so that was my first moment going, oh, okay, I'm in trouble. Because that doesn't happen unless you're in trouble. So the night pursued, and the symptoms and signs ended up dissipating. And I went home the next day because they couldn't quite work out what was going on. And someone mentioned a stroke that night. Which was terrifying, and it was someone who's relatively fit and healthy, active. To hear that word, which is so severe and got so many dangerous connotations, was terrifying. Going back to Cairns the next day, I was shaken, I was rocked, I was exhausted, but I knew I had lots and lots of tests to do, and I was very confused. Now, doing all those tests, they couldn't really work out what happened. They couldn't really put a pinpoint going, this is what happened, this is what's wrong with you. And to be honest, they missed something. Now we know it. Because I was told, look, you're young, you're fit, you're healthy, your body's had a hiccup, was the term. Which is interesting. But it was with all my journey, I've made mistakes, and the people made mistakes on my journey as well. I don't hold any animosity to anybody because we're all human, and this is what journey is all about. So fast forward from, again, like I said, March 2019 to January 2020. As you mentioned, I went to India with a friend of mine, drove a tuk-tuk, the full length of India, which was an incredible experience, and it was a bit of a race with other people from point A to point B. Just, again, I recommend anybody to do it. And we're in the middle of nowhere buying oil and fuel from a hole in the wall. I remember the ground was just dust and dirt. I got oil or fuel, I can't remember which one, in my arms walking back to the tuk-tuk. And slowly I just start going down. And there's a taste that I will never forget. There's a taste of when it happens. Because I had it the first time in the Gold Coast. And I remember tasting this almost metallic taste in my mouth. So I knew instantly what was going on. I knew instantly this was exactly what happened nearly a year ago. This time there was no fear, there was no upset. I've got to be honest, Rob, I was furious. I was apocalyptically angry as I was literally almost in slow motion going down. It must have looked really weird to people walking past. As I was shouting every single swear word you could imagine under the sun, because I was just so angry that this was going on, and frustrated as well. But I knew that this could potentially happen. So what I brought with me was aspirin, which is a blood thinners. So I knew that was the only thing I could do. So I asked my friend, like, get me back to where we're staying that night. I need to raise my heart rate to get the blood flowing. I need to pop aspirin to basically knock out whatever's going on. Other than that, there was not much more we could do. I'm not going to a hospital in the middle of India. So we finished the race. And again, similar to Kilimanjaro, my stubbornness comes through. I'm finishing this race. When I can walk again, which I could that night, and so we left the next morning and carried on driving. I'm finishing this race, and this is not going to deter me. I will deal with this when I get home. So when I got home, and a lot of people find this interesting, a bit weird, I didn't tell anybody. I told my friend who went back to the UK not to tell anything to my mum either. The reason for that is I wanted to know what was going on first. So I went to the doctor and I got lots of tests, and it's only when I knew what was going on that I really told my mum and my wife. Because I didn't want them worrying and asking me all these questions when I didn't have the answers anyway. A lot of people find that a bit odd and go, well, you should just tell everyone at the start. But it was my way of going, I need to focus on finding the problem before getting questions.
You know, there is a strange parallel I find with that and what I hear a lot in entrepreneurial circles, where people talk about keeping your moves to yourself.
Yeah.
And there is that thing sometimes, there are two sides to why telling people what you're up to is a bad thing, because especially if it is something that you're working on and it's a positive aspirational thing, the dopamine hit that you get off telling them is as good as doing the thing, so you don't wind up doing the thing.
Yeah.
And also because you get everybody's opinions and suggestions, and it messes up your thinking, and it also turns you off doing the thing because you associate that thing with everybody, chiming in and telling you, either giving you their ideas or telling you why it's a bad idea or that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so it's odd. Yeah, it is odd to kind of hear that applied to a health situation, but yeah, it does. It makes sense. It certainly does make sense.
I wanted to know what I was dealing with, and thankfully I had a different neurologist from what I had the year before, and she was amazing. She was absolutely sensational. She showed me the scans, which very rarely happens. Normally you're talking to someone who's looking at a screen and you're over there and they're just talking. And she showed me that I had 3 dead spots on the right-hand side of my brain. And they were like stars. So she showed me on the screen, and the one was very, very bright, and they got relatively less bright. And she explained to me at some point I had 3 strokes. And yet I was sitting there feeling fine, no loss of feeling. I could talk. I remember my sense of taste had changed slightly, but other than that, nothing. But effectively, I was fine. So extremely lucky to be there. This hadn't happened underwater. This hadn't happened on Kilimanjaro. Otherwise, I would not be there. So, very, very grateful to be there at this point. But the question again rose, why? Why in my early 30s have I encountered 3 strokes? God knows when the third one was. We'll never know. We can't let that one go. Now the question is why. So from that followed further tests, and as you mentioned at the start, what happened was we found out that at birth when we've all got a partition in our heart, and it actually sort of flaps like that, and when we take our first breath, it seals, like so. So that's your partition. What we found out is mine never did. So for 30 odd years at this point, it was doing that.
And is that what they call a heart murmur?
No, it's I can't remember what it's called, but the surgery I was needed was called a PFO. Basically, the partition effectively needs to be sealed from both sides. So I had heart surgery, which where they put an amazing device, which is a fan that seals on both sides. Incredibly smart. This is where it got a bit complicated, because this is now March, April 2020. And if anyone could put those dates together, we're now getting into the kickoff of COVID.
Yep.
So going into having heart surgery in the midst of COVID was chaotic at best, and more complicated than needed to be. Lots of tests. Every time you go in the hospital, I'm going to hospital, test. But I had the heart surgery on the Thursday, and it went okay as far as I was aware. On the Friday, to give you an idea of my mindset, which wasn't the best in terms of how I was dealing with stuff, I was in hospital wired up to the nines. And most people will be relaxing, sleeping, watching a movie, playing games. I was on my laptop on Microsoft Teams working the day after. Not smart, but it was very much how I was managing the situation. And I'd done the similar the year before when it first happened. I threw myself into work. Wasn't the right thing to do. Again,
it can be a pretty powerful distraction.
It can be, but not necessarily a healthy one. Like as I said at the top, I've made loads of mistakes, but now I learned them and I can recognise from other people and help prevent them from making the same. What was also not great was the business that I worked for at the time. They have a very strong mantra of we're a family. And something I talk about a lot, because when I think of family businesses, the healthy ones, it's a small corner shop down the road. It's mum and pop, granddad owned it, passed it down.
It's a literal family business, yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. We need more of those. I think they're just wonderful. When you start talking national organizations, global corporations, they can't play the family card, but yeah, they do. And this is why it's dangerous. There's two elements. One that gets spoken about a lot and the other one that doesn't. One, which I bought into this. Again, I will hold my hands up. I bought into it. I preached it. I spoke about it. But again, I've learned from it. Is when you have that mantra of we're a family, you work more. You put more in because it's what you do. You get in that mindset of we're a family. Of course I'm going to go over and above and over and above, because I've got to look after people and do the right thing and give more than actually you should. That's the most common one that gets spoken about. The other one, which I think is more dangerous, is when things go wrong. Because you are dealing with businesses and corporations. They've got to hit numbers. They've got to, they have HR and procedures and all that stuff, and that's fine. It's absolute, and they're going to go nothing against anybody or organisations or corporations, because we need them as to be functioning society in many ways. But when those lines are blurred, you as an employee, as an individual, as a member of the family, go from this is a safe place. Definitely in my situation, I'm escaping from health and all these issues into work, safe place, safe environment, people who actually want to look after me. And then on a dime, which happened later on down the line, things go wrong. And, I experienced a redundancy, and I wasn't alone, many people did, and it was needed, I get that. But psychologically, your safe place, your family, breaks up with you. And it's like a breakup.
Yeah.
And I've seen, and for me, in retrospect, it was the best thing that ever happened, because it's been part of my journey. I actually have sympathy for anybody having to deliver the news of redundancies or layoffs, because my God, it's going to be difficult, and people who do it well have beyond my respect. But I've seen the damage it can do in others. Someone who I have so much time and respect for left the business as well years ago, and they didn't leave on good terms, and you can still see they're still taught up about it to this day, that it still affected them, because it was the best time in their life career-wise, and literally overnight it was gone. And that's the danger of the family trope in corporations, because it goes from your part of us to, we don't want you anymore. Because you're a cog, you're a machine, you're in a number, and that's fine. And I talk a lot about it because it's important that people know going into corporations, because the jobs can be great, the careers can be awesome, but you need to be savvy about it. And it's not about being a cynic. I'm certainly not a cynic. I mean, I'd work for a corporation tomorrow if it was the right job and the right leader. But it's about being aware of it and being able to be corporately savvy. So I know we diverted a little bit. But that's to give you an idea. The Friday I was working because I bought into it, and that was how I was dealing with it. So fast forward, that was the Friday. The following Tuesday, I'm at home. My wife is out giving plasma, ironically. And out of the blue, my heart just goes bang and starts beating irregularly, but also at an unbelievable speed. I feel dizzy. I nearly fall over from dizziness. I'm running to the bathroom to throw up, and I can barely breathe because it's just beating crazily. Now, because I'm a fool and I'm a young man at this point, I don't immediately ask for an ambulance. I call my neighbour to check. So I get my neighbour to come over and I go, am I okay, do you think? He's going pale. He's going absolutely pale. No, you're not. Which is obvious. So I call an ambulance. No, he does, sorry. He calls an ambulance. And they get there, and equally they look very concerned, which is not necessarily one wants to see. And they call another ambulance for backup. So they do all these tests, they get me in the ambulance, and I'm sitting in this ambulance on my driveway, waiting, which is very weird. Fast forward, get to the hospital. Effectively, my heart is going at 230 beats a minute, which is dangerous.
Now, yeah, and do you know what the regular heart rate is, just for people listening? I mean, and for me as well, I don't.
I think it's about half that.
Ah.
I think from memory from looking, that shouldn't be a resting heart rate at all. So, and I'm lying down and panting and sweating. And it's I say this often. It's a great way to lose weight, but not a healthy one. But they get me in, and again it's COVID, so no one can come in. So my wife gets home, and there's panic outside the house. The neighbours running out. Jack's gone to hospital. Jack's gone to hospital. And she gets to the hospital, and they don't let her in. They can't. Not allowed. So I'm in this room, very weird, panting away, beeps that you can imagine from any hospital going around my head, and they give me potassium and magnesium and a drip in my arm. And one of them, someone will know, but one of them hurts. One of them is like someone squeezing your arm. That sticks with me very much. But in that moment, I'm very much on my own. I'm like, I'll give Mum a call. She knows what's going on, and I'll at least talk to someone. So I called my mum back in the UK, and it's very hard to talk because I'm panting, but I'm trying to explain to what's going on and trying to also kind of say that I'm okay when I'm not, which is silly, but that's what we do, I guess. The nurses rush in, and I got my mum on the phone so she could hear everything that's going on, and they basically explained to me that the potassium magnesium is not working, and they can't let my heart continue because there's a risk of cardiac arrest. It's just going to stop because of that. The speed is dangerous. So the best option is to defibrillate my heart and stop it, and then restart it again, which has its risks because there's no guarantee of being able to start it naturally. Very weird moment because on my phone to my mum, effectively having to say, as you mentioned at the top, goodbye very quickly, and not knowing if I was going to speak to her again. But it's weird, and it's a moment that stays with me because I went from fear, confusion when I'm on the phone to Mum, and the moment I hung up, I went calm. I almost went somewhere else. I went into a moment of acceptance, and I describe it. People go, "Oh, did you feel peace? Did you feel at peace with dying?" I don't think it was quite that. It was, I've got one card to play in this situation. If I want to see tomorrow, I've got one card to play. And if that card doesn't come up, at least I played it. And it's the best way I can describe it because I was ready. I was like, okay, let's do it. And I was fine with that as much as one could be fine in that situation. Because it was the one card I had to play. and it was a sense of calm. So they knocked me out, and obviously I'm still here to this day. So the next thing I know, I wake up and I'm fine, and it worked, which is brilliant. So I stay in overnight, and I was on medication, understandably, after the surgery, so they're playing with my meds a bit throughout the night. I go home the next day, and I think a week and a half passes, and the next Sunday it happens again. Not as severe, I think 190 beats a minute from memory. To hospital, and this time I was ready for it. It was, okay, potassium, magnesium, okay, that's going to hurt. All right, I'm ready. Nurses come in, it's not working, ready to defeat. Ready, ladies, let's go. Very different mentality, something quite odd, but it's the devil you know in some ways.
Yeah, I've played this card before, I can play it again.
Exactly. So that was the Sunday again, same result, came back absolutely fine. Then it happened on the Wednesday, again less severe, but it was slightly different because going back to the hospital, they were very clear, we can't do it again because it's the time frame's too close. You were here 2 days ago pretty much, and we stopped your heart with the defib. So you're going to have to ride it out, which wasn't a fun night of laying in a bed, panting, sweating, just waiting and being constantly assessed and having fluids put into me and all sorts. Gradually over time, this got better. But that was a course of 6 months of keeping my heart rate, I think, between 90 and 110. I couldn't do more than a strong walk. My wife had a brilliant idea. She bought me a Fitbit, which was a great idea. Because you can't help but wonder, is my heart going? You get paranoid. And even to this day, it's interesting, so people pick up tics. But I have a slight tic now where... because our body all has moments, don't we? We stand up too fast, you get a bit dizzy, or whatever it might be. But anytime I feel something a bit odd, I pinch my index finger with my thumbnail, and it's my tick almost to go. If I can feel that, I'm fine. Even though there's no reason whatsoever why anything should happen to me anymore, because this was years ago now, and the reason my heart went in such a bad shape was because it was inflamed because of the surgery. It was angry. It was bruised up, and so that was why it was misbehaving so badly. So once that inflammation died down and the medication that I was on at the time, which again now I'm no longer on, managed that period, I'm back to brand new. There's no reason a stroke should happen. The hole's been sealed, but still to this day, anytime I had a little bit of a moment, I just do that, and it's little things like that help, I guess, psychologically manage what happened.
What did you? The second Babylon 5 question in that show is, what do you want? And so it seems like you did want a bunch of things before the incident. You were living a great life. You were tripping around the world. You were working for this company, even though you sort of then realised eventually what a poor fit. I hate the way culture kind of gets bandied around a lot in workplaces, but nonetheless, it's the best word for the moment. The culture of the organisation wasn't a great fit for you. What did you find you wanted after you came out on the other side of those incidents?
It's a great question, and I think there's a couple of different moments in that, because when the heart was going on, I was still very much devoted to the company and where I was working. I remember one of my trips, on the way to one of the trips to hospital, I accepted a promotion. I remember being on Teams and going, I would like to accept the job, but I've got to go. And seeing this person just go pale as hell on the scope, go, it's fine, we'll talk to you later. So I was very much, again, making the error of throwing myself into work more and more and more and more and more at the time, and going, this is what I can focus on, this is what I can control, and I've got an opportunity to build and be a leader in the business, and this is what I want. And don't get me wrong, the time that I've had with the business was phenomenal. Again, I don't regret anything. But what happened at the beginning of this year was a real light bulb moment, because, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this in similar situations for them, being made redundant is really difficult. It's not fun for anyone, either whether you're giving the news or you're not, or you're receiving, sorry. But what it can do for a lot of people, especially people in my position, is it actually forces you to go. And that sounds a bit weird. But I reflect back and go, really, the last year, I was not happy. I was not healthy mentally at all. But I wasn't happy in my role or in the business for a multitude of reasons. And it actually forced me to leave, because I was never going to leave on my own accord, because you push through. Things will get better. You'll be fine. It forced me to step away and find myself, which it's a bit of a cliche term, but it really, really did. It helped me redefine my identity, and it's something that I talk about a lot. The two incidences enabled me to redefine my identity. Facing that mortality gave me a different perspective on life a little bit more. Re-energized my passion for doing things for me in a selfish way, because tomorrow might not be here. Highlighted the incredible people that I have in my life, because there were certain people who stood up and that will forever be really, really close in my heart. And if they know who they are, but they know that, you know, if they needed something, I'm there tomorrow. I'm there in an hour. Those relationships are beyond special. It's where friends go beyond family. In that sense, you know, just incredible. There's the best advice that I was ever given, and I say it to this day, is in your darkest moments, have a look around and look at the people who stand up for you and in front of you. They're a true reflection of who you are. And you know, these people are amazing. So that helped me redefine that moment, and the redundancy brought everything almost to a close and everything together, because it forced me to stop for one and reassess who I am, my purpose, what did I want, and what I want to do. You mentioned, what do I want? So often that wasn't enabled to be the case of what I actually want. So it forced that reset, which was brilliant. And again, I say I don't regret anything. I don't, you know, at the time, if someone said, oh, you know, in 2 months' time, whatever it was, you know, we'll ask you if you want to come back. I'll go, yeah, I'll do it. Now, not in a million years. No way. Because it's not the right for me right now. I've never closed any door, ever, because life's too short and the world's too small. But to put me in a position where now I'm doing things that are my passion, my drive, which is coaching people and meeting some incredible people across the globe who have got so many different challenges and obstacles and adversities to overcome, and for me to be able to help them and see their growth and see the realizations, is just amazing.
Well, tell us a little bit more about Glennon Peak Coaching. And I apologise, I keep finding in my head, I don't know why, I keep saying Glennon Park Coaching. I go, no, Peak. Don't know why. So, yeah, tell us, so it started this year? Have I got that right?
Yeah.
After you made redundant, of course. But, so, yeah, how is it going? How has that Venkman moment of going into business for yourself been?
So the peak comes from Kilimanjaro. Ironically, that's where I came up with that link there, because again, it was a challenge, it was adversity, it was climbing, and a great accomplishment in itself. Basically, what I decided to do was, again, coming out, I wanted to learn, I wanted to open my mind up more, so I did loads of courses online. I did a Harvard X course. I started to write on LinkedIn to, again, pass on my experience, my knowledge. And I put my services as a coach on a couple of platforms. And then I was ironically on a podcast similar to this one. And I remember talking to them, someone, and they went, why don't you just do it yourself? And it was such an obvious thing. Because what I was doing was trying to find my next career. And that's something that I still, you know, a full-time role, but more and more people are having, I hate the term side hustle, I think it's really derogatory, but side venture. More and more people are having 2 jobs, 3 jobs, side ventures. And I think that's a smart financial thing to do. So whilst looking for the next career home, I'm like, well, I could just do this myself and have that. And that's my driver, that's my passion. So I came up with a design and came up with a name, and it stuck with me for about a week. And I was going, oh, do I do this? And I went, so I'm doing it. And I literally just threw myself into it, going, okay, I'm going to build, again, having to learn. I built the website. I didn't know how to build a website. I had to write everything. Start a social media page on Instagram, and put the services out there, do mail merges, optimizing, Google, Google optimization, search and SEO, sorry. Learn all the stuff which was new to me, but it was opening my mind up. But then meeting some incredible people along the way. And whilst it's still very much in its infancy now, and it's in the early stages of very much getting the word out there and connecting with people, and but the response has been fantastic, and the support that I've had from close friends and family has been nothing but overwhelming.
That's one thing I definitely do want to ask you about, because one of my core ideas, in part with this podcast and also more generally, is that as much as in this modern society, we can do a lot on our own. It might even be possible that we can, in some ways, do everything on our own, but it's easy to say I'm of the belief when it's something that I'm still working on embodying, but that things are so much better and richer and more joyous when they are shared with and done with other people. And you said something wonderful a little bit earlier on about finding the people who will stand for you and also in front of you. And you, of course, mentioned that colleague of yours who went to the hospital with you. Can you tell us a bit more about those people whom you have found in your life and how they're still with you and what they mean to you?
They mean the world. There's a few people here in Brisbane that I got to know because I had to move down here for work, and I ended up having to live away from my wife for about 18 months. And that was tough. And as we get older, I think we find it more difficult to meet new people. And I met a few people here in Brisbane that I lived in the same apartment complex, and they're like sort of my Brisbane family in many ways, because they've been with me when I've been at my most vulnerable, and vice versa at the same time. There's trust there, there's authenticity, there's no fakeness, and they're really special. But like expats like you and I, for example, when you move, relationships become harder. As you grow up, relationships become harder. So it's the ones that you make an effort and it's mutually shown. I've got a couple of people up in Cairns that are really, really special, and I've got two really close friends, back in the UK, one especially, that they're so special. And the colleague, like you said, mentioned, and we all keep in contact, and it doesn't need to be every day or every week, but it's knowing whether they're there, but more so knowing I'm here as well. I love them. I'm absolutely devoted to all of them, because it's about being your authentic self. You talk about this in the modern age, being on your own, doing what you're doing, for example, podcast, it's all putting yourself out there. Me being a guest, it's putting myself out there. Doing the business, putting myself out there, applying for jobs, if you're looking for a job, putting yourself out there. All this stuff is putting yourself out there and being vulnerable to the world. And let's be honest, 90% of the time you get rejected. And it's hard. If you're doing that solely on your own, day in, day out, you'd be superhuman if you didn't have a day of going, am I doing the right thing? Is this me? Am I wrong? If you don't have that sounding board with people who are going to be honest and authentic and not just cheerleaders, who go, you're doing the right thing, thank you, I needed that. But you might try this. Oh my God, that's great, I didn't think of that. You're going to continue doing either the wrong things or have a false sense of your own success. And the support network that I've got through these close friends especially they're great. And I've found myself really lucky.
Well, I think that all leads us to the third question in this sequence. Why are you here? Which can sound like a very big, broad, holistic question. But I guess it also means, leading on from the two that came before, where you find yourself in the moment, when you look around your situation right now and what you're doing, what do you find is the why of it? I think you did kind of answer it a little bit earlier on when you talked about winning vicariously, which makes me think of you as kind of a stage mum in business, but just nowhere near as toxic.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting analogy, that one. But why now, or why am I here? I think I did slightly cover it, I guess. I think there's two different branches for me. One, I'm here to live my life the best I can, and I try and leave a legacy wherever I go, whether that's with people, with jobs. I always try and legacy sounds a bit over the top and a bit dramatic, but it could even be and it has been in certain circumstances, where I've implemented a new process that made loads of people's lives more efficient, easier. No one knows that was me now. That was years ago. But I know that was me, and I know, cool, that's awesome, that's my legacy. And that's a nice feeling to know you made something better.
Yeah.
Now that transfers to making other people's situations better. And, I had so many wonderful moments, even the short term, working with a couple of people and just seeing their light bulbs and go, see their realization in their face, go, wow, that's amazing. And, I catch up with them a week later and they go, I can't wait to tell you what happened. That's gold dust. That's amazing. I've count myself so lucky and grateful, and I don't know, I've worked hard for it and I continue to do so, but to be able to live those moments and experience that joy with that person at the same time, yes, there's a flip side of the coin that you've got to go through the tough times, and that's where emotional intelligence comes through and empathy, to be there for them and help them through the tough times. But the light at the end of the tunnel is more than worth it.
So, funnily enough, there is a fourth question in this sequence, and in the TV show Babylon 5, it was asked at the end of what was the very last episode. Where are you going? What do you find in the near future? There are a few. Why are you here? I actually have very few sub-questions on, but this one I've got a bunch. So what in the near future do you have to look forward to, Jack? And what climbing do you still feel like you've got left to do?
Great question. I feel like I'm still at the beginning of my journey now, because I feel this is a new me in many ways. Again, redefining one's identity. So I think the journey's still young. It's an incredibly exciting time to be, commencing at the infancy of the business. At the same time, I'm starting a new career in multitude of different ways. I'm talking to a couple of different people about, new roles that I could take on at the same time, which is exciting. And it's on my terms in some ways, that's not so it's all on me, but I'm looking with a different lens going, these are my non-negotiables. I'm not going to make the same mistakes again. I'll make others probably, as we all do. But it's incredibly exciting to look forward rather than look back. I look back and reflect, and, I have wonderful conversations with people such as yourself where I can look back and reflect and go, I'm glad that happened. My God, I was an idiot. My God, I made mistakes. And other people did along the way. I'm certainly not here to, say that everyone along the road was perfect. There was a lot of people around me that did me wrong at the same time, made mistakes, but equally so did I. That's what happens, and that's life. So as long as you have the self-awareness to reflect on that and grow, then you're going to be in a better place. So I can't wait. I'm looking forward to the journey in front. It's going to have bumps and bruises probably along the way, as life does. But, meeting people such as yourself, meeting more clients, what the career will hold, it's exciting.
Now, here is a question that I even feel a little bit scared to ask, because it does seem a bit confronting, but it's one that I've found myself asking myself. What do you want the closing days of your life to be like?
That's not that confronting.
As someone who's...
Yeah, I was about to say, because I've been there a little bit.
Somebody brushed with mortality a couple of times.
Yeah,
and
a little bit less stressful than those times, I think. A little bit less. I'd probably avoid being in a hospital. I think that's the last place I'd ever want to be in. If I was in the last days of my life on this planet, I want it to be just warm. That's the weird word I can come up with, is warm and not depressing. For me, it's... I'd want, close people around. And for me, in my mind, going, yeah, you did everything you could. And in every sense of the word, as you did everything you could for the people around you, and for the clients you had in the business world, but also personally as well. You did everything you could to be the best version of yourself for the people around you. But also the other side, you did everything you could to live your life as much as you could. So, you did Kilimanjaro, you went here, you did that. And you it sounds, it's crazy, but you filled... I remember when I was in Thailand many, many years ago, I got a tattoo, and it meant longevity. Now, to most of us, longevity means a long-lasting life. And in their culture, this symbol doesn't mean long-lasting life, it means full life. And you can be here for 5 years, but as long as you fill that cup to the brim, that's longevity. So for me, looking back and going, you did the best you could to fill that cup.
Yeah, it makes me think of a phrase I think I read at one point, aspiring to live a short life but a merry one, in some ways. Well, as we wrap this show up, tell us a bit more about Glennon Peak Coaching. What can we tell people about your company and how they can engage your services and how they help people?
Absolutely, and fantastic for the opportunity. So Glennon Peak Coaching is it's coaching with myself. It's online, and it's very much tailored to you, to the clients, to the audience. So because everyone has different challenges, everyone has different adversities, and everyone has different identities that they might want to redefine. So what I do is I offer everyone a free 30-minute session with me off the top. It gives them an opportunity to meet me, but it gives them an opportunity to explain who they are, their journey, and what they want to get out of it. A lot of coaching that goes on is very much generic, and it's one size fits all. Oh, you've got a problem with sales or leadership. Cool, here's a program. Bang. There's nothing wrong with that. That fits large groups. I offer that as well for sales training predominantly. But when it comes to one-to-one leadership, career coaching, predominantly those two, it needs to be, in my opinion, tailored. And what I focus on is the emotional intelligence of the individual, just focusing on the problem to find a solution rather than them going, right, I need to fix you. It's not about that. It's very much taking them on the journey. So what I traditionally do is we have that half an hour session where they share their challenge and what they want to get out of it. And then I suggest how many sessions I think we're going to need. And it's very much left within their control. So I'll give an example. So I had someone recently that they came to me, had a good conversation. I said, look, we can probably do this in one session. I can do this in 1 hour. It's always bigger in our mind, right? And I didn't want to downplay their challenge, but I said, you're not in as bad trouble as you think. I think we can do this in an hour. And we did, but at the end of the session, he was like, can we have one more just to follow up? I was like, absolutely, no dramas. And the follow-up was very nice. It was very light. It was more sort of reaffirmation that everything was good. So it's very much about tailoring to you and what you need to get out of it. And I'm not so, because mentoring is something that's ongoing. Coaching is defined timeline with a defined goal. So I am always available to people who come onto my coaching as a mentor as well. People wouldn't have pick up the phone and have a 5-minute conversation. That's just a given, and that's nothing to do with that's not charged or anything. That's just part of coming to Glennon Peak Coaching. In terms of how to find me, we've got a website, glennonpc.com. And there's a subscription where they can get free downloadable content from me directly on 101s of emotional intelligence, for example, and also the blog that I write. So then all the communication comes to me directly. It's just me. So there's no bots or anything. But it's a really exciting thing to do.
And that is GLENNONPC.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Jack, it has been fantastic chatting with you for this show. Thank you for indulging me in trying out a new format as I fiddle with this podcast. It has been great, again, hearing about I keep stopping myself because I keep thinking, God, these words sound cliche, incredible journey, etc., etc. It feels like we need a better vocabulary around life experience so things don't sound so tired and so self-help tropey, if you know what I mean. But I'm glad, I'm glad that you are still here and around and that you have discovered what you want out of life and how you are using it to help other people. And I did make a note of the 3 30-minute coaching sessions, so you never know. Given where I am at the moment, I might well be in touch.
Absolutely. More than welcome, Rob.